Hello comrades, and welcome to Juche Lessons. In this episode, we will be discussing the fundamental question of philosophy and Juche's position in the history of the development of philosophy. Philosophy contributes to defining the essential method of shaping the destiny of humanity by giving a world outlook, an integral system of viewpoint, attitude, and stand on the world as a whole, as opposed to giving the viewpoint and attitude to some specific things and phenomena like in other sciences. And the basic question, the start point question that can evolve all philosophical problems logically, is the fundamental question of the philosophy. It is therefore a prerequisite for the evolution of scientific and revolutionary world outlook to correctly raise the fundamental question of philosophy. General Secretary Kim Jong-il once said, "Since the question of the world's origin had been made clear by the materialistic viewpoint, the Juche idea raised a new problem concerning the position and role of humanity in the world as the basic question of philosophy, and gave an answer to the question of who is the master of the world." End quote. So the fundamental question of philosophy that is raised by the Juche idea is the question of the position and role of humanity in the world. The relation between the world and humanity is very complex and diverse. But the basic question in the relation of the world and humanity is the question of the position and role of humans in the world. In other words, this question is the one of whether humanity dominates the world or is dominated by the world, and the question of what role humanity plays in transforming and developing the world. So it is the fundamental question of philosophy raised centering on humanity. The fundamental question of Juche philosophy becomes a new thesis in the basic question of philosophy, because it fulfills the requirement of the law of development of the world outlook of humankind. Philosophy has a thousands-year-long history, and many philosophical schools and well-known philosophers have issued various philosophical viewpoints in its long history. General Secretary Kim Jong-il once said, quote, "In the past, the relations between substance and consciousness, between being and thinking, were regarded as the basic question of philosophy." End quote. In the past, the relations between matter and consciousness, between being and thinking, were regarded as the basic question of philosophy. This is the question of which is prior, matter or consciousness. Here, materialism means that matter is primary and consciousness comes from the matter, whereas idealism means that consciousness is primary and matter comes from the consciousness. The previous philosophies were classified into materialism, which analyzed the world materialistically, and idealism, which analyzed the world idealistically, according to the understanding of the relationship between matter and consciousness. Since the beginning of the philosophical thinking of humankind, the long history of philosophical development is the history of the struggle between these two conflicting philosophical world outlooks. Now, obviously, it is impossible for me to say everything about the development of the two trends of philosophy, materialism and idealism, but what is important to understand is that the relations between matter and consciousness, being and thinking, were regarded as the fundamental question of philosophy. And the controversy that continued for thousands of years finally ended in the 40s of the 19th century after the emergence of the Marxist materialistic dialectical world outlook. You might be asking, why did the previous philosophies have to regard the relations between matter and consciousness, being and thinking, as the fundamental question of philosophy? This is because, once upon a time, the people were seized by unscientific illusions for the lack of a better understanding of their circumstances. For example, people in previous ages did not understand the reason for lightning and thunder, why the moon sometimes looked round and sometimes crescent. So they generally imagined that all phenomena were caused by miracles of supernatural beings, like Jupiter and other deities. But the people, through the constant struggle to conquer nature and shape their destiny, revealed the secrets of nature and freed themselves from mystic illusion, and in this course gained a more accurate understanding of the surrounding world first. Without understanding the surrounding world which restricts them and about the origin of the world, they cannot understand or shape their destiny. So the people raised the question of the origin of the world, the question of mutual relation between matter and consciousness, as the basic question of philosophy from the early period of the development of philosophy. And the question was scientifically answered by the Marxist dialectical materialistic world outlook. But this does not mean the end of the development of the world outlook. With the question of the origin of the world and its laws of material motion answered scientifically, people become greatly interested in having a correct understanding about themselves, especially about humanity's position and role in the world. In other words, under the conditions in which the question of the origin of the world was answered scientifically and accurately, thanks to dialectical materialism, it is a lawful requirement in the development of the world outlook to clarify humanity's position and role in the world. The Juche idea raised humanity's position and role in the world as the fundamental question of philosophy by fulfilling this lawful requirement, thus newly renovating the fundamental question of the past philosophies and shining new light on them. Next, the fundamental question of the Juche philosophy correctly reflects the requirement of our age, the era of independence. A new age requires a new outlook on the world, and the development of the age is accompanied by the development of the world outlook. Our age is a new age of history, the age of independence, in which the people's struggle for independence take place in a more broad and diversified way in the worldwide arena than ever before. And the imperialists align in order to check their advance. Accordingly, the age of independence, the age of Juche, requires a world outlook that enables the popular masses to shape their destiny independently and creatively, with a high awareness that they are masters of their destiny. What is important in establishing the world outlook in our era is the question of humanity's position and role in the world. Only when this question is raised and answered is it possible to give correct philosophical answers to the important and principled questions in the revolutionary practice of our times. Questions such as whether the popular masses could shape their destiny with their own strength or not, and whether the people in each country could achieve liberation and build a new, free, and prosperous society with their own strength. The Juche idea reflected such requirements of our era and newly raised the question of humanity's position and role in the world as the fundamental question of philosophy, and answered it, thus brilliantly carrying out the task as required in the philosophical world outlook of our times, and hence Juche's importance in our times. That's all for this episode, comrades. Check out our Facebook and Twitter pages for more Juche and DPRK content, which I will leave links to in the description of this video. If you enjoyed what you saw, please remember to like, share, and subscribe so we can raise the revolutionary consciousness of the masses. And because I run solely on your motivation and encouragement. Red salute, Juche comrades.